Hi guys, Mrs. Homan here with another science video. Today we are continuing our three-part series on the Earth, Sun, Moon system. In our first video, we discussed days, years, and seasons. The second focused on the lunar cycle, and today we'll focus on eclipses and tides. So let's get started. An eclipse is an event during which one object in space casts a shadow onto another. There are two parts of the eclipse shadow, the umbra and the penumbra. The umbra is the full or darkest part of the shadow, and the penumbra is the partial or lighter part of the shadow. A lunar eclipse occurs when the moon moves through the Earth's shadow. Just before a lunar eclipse, the moon is in the full moon phase. A solar eclipse occurs when the moon is directly between the sun and Earth. The shadow of the moon falls on part of the Earth. Just before a solar eclipse, the moon is in the new moon phase. So why do we not experience an eclipse every full and new moon? Because the moon orbits the Earth at an angle, and usually they do not line up properly to cause an eclipse. Occasionally, though, they do line up properly, and we get an eclipse between 4 and 7 every year. Tides are daily changes in the level of ocean water caused by the difference in gravitational force of the moon and sun on Earth. The tidal force exerted by the moon is twice as strong as the sun because it is so much closer. The moon is mainly responsible for the tides. Before we get into the types of tides, let's review some important tidal vocabulary. High tide is higher than average sea level. Low tide is lower than average sea level. And the tidal range is the difference between high tide and low tide. Our first type of tide we're going to discuss is the spring tide. The spring tide is the largest tidal range when the sun, moon, and earth form a straight line during full and new moon phases. The gravitational effects add together, causing one pair of very large tidal bulges. Please keep in mind this has nothing to do with the spring season. The second type of tide is called a neap tide. A neap tide is the smallest tidal range when the sun, moon, and earth form a 90-degree angle during the first and third quarter moons. The gravitational effects do not add together, causing two pairs of smaller tidal bulges. To summarize, there are two types of eclipses we experience on Earth. A lunar eclipse is where the Earth casts its shadow on the moon and when the moon is in the full moon phase. And a solar eclipse is where the moon casts its shadow on Earth when the moon is in the new moon phase. There are two major types of tides. We have the spring tides, which cause one pair of large tidal bulges when the moon is in the full or new moon phase, and neap tides, which cause two pairs of smaller tidal bulges when the moon is in the first and third quarter moon phases. Thank you so much for watching. Have a marvelous day.